Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all of the praises and the glory to the Most High and His Son, Yahweh Shema Shah Bashim Quadash, and double honor to the apostles of the great millstone that taught me this truth, and as well as giving the salutations and the honors to the brothers out there that's forwarding this truth as well, and shalom to the brothers and the sisters too. And I just want to jump right into this video in correcting myself, because I said that Pat Robertson was wrong, that he was being compelled by God to precipitate the apocalypse. And when I read it, I thought of the word precipitate, meaning that he was saying that he was trying to, lessen the, the coming of that, the apocalypse. But obviously, what it means is to suddenly bring the apocalypse. And Pat Robertson, I've seen him before a couple of times from video to video. I haven't really caught on to him as of recently, but he deals with prophecies in the scriptures, and sometimes they're right on what they're saying, man. Sometimes they're right, but they go off on a couple of things because they don't know the whole truth like we do. But that's all right. But I want to get into this right here. So this reads: Pat Robertson says Putin was compelled by the Most High to invade Ukraine to fulfill Armageddon's prophecy. Televangelist Pat Robertson said Monday that Russian President Vladimir Putin was compelled by the Most High in his decisions to invade Ukraine, suggesting that Russia's attack are a precursor to an end-time battle in Israel. The Christian media mogul returns to the 700 Club a few months after he retired from the show he hosted the 55 years on the Christian's Broadcasting Network. In his return, Robertson claimed that Putin was simply following God's wishes when Russia invaded Ukraine to fulfill a biblical prophecy. I think you can say, well, Putin's out of his mind, and yes, maybe so, said Robertson 91. But at the same time, he is being compelled by God. And he went into the Ukraine, but that wasn't his goal. His goal was to move against Israel ultimately, and either and or whether Russia invaded Ukraine, that was also the will of the Lord too. Because ultimately, as he's correct on, basically they will invade Israel, and that's after the book of Ezekiel 38, which is what he's referring to. And but Armageddon, to be exact, the real Armageddon for this war is not going to take place because they're in Ukraine. What Russia's doing is beginning with Putin. Putin is taking over Ukraine. And what I'll do is I'll post the video that I did on post-production on that, how he signed about 400 pieces of papers to basically grab up all of these four regions within Ukraine and to eventually formulate the USSR as it was back in the day, as of what it looks like right now. But eventually, the real war, what's going to begin this actual war, the destruction of this system, is when the least of the flock are going to draw them out. Because you got two little nations, right? You have the Israelis and you have the Iranians. And the Israelis are a very important ally. They're very important partners to America. Let me say that differently. That's an important partner for America, and as well as Iran is a very important partner to Russia. So if any of these nations get affected majorly by any one of these major powers, then one of these major powers are going to side by side with their little ally, which is very important to them. So let's just say if Russia does invade Israel, guess what? America's going to step in there and going to have no choice but to fight, and vice versa. All right. Just like it reads in the book of Jeremiah 49 in verse 20. Because what Israel and Iran, all of y'all, they're the least of the flock. Therefore, hear the counsel of the Lord that he have taken against Edom, and they're both Edomites. The Americans and the Russians, they're both Edomites. And his purposes that he hath purposed against inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out, and surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them, and the earth is moved at the noise of their fall. and that the cry, the noise thereof, was heard in the Red Sea. Behold, he shall come up and fly as the eagle, and spread his wings over Basra, and that day shall the heart of the mighty men of Edom be as the heart of a woman in her pangs. And this is referencing the Heavenly Father beginning to send his son to pay a visit to both nations. Because when the Lord pays a visit, when the Lord visits this planet, every nation on the face of the earth is going to see his return, because he's coming in the big, gigantic, mountainous like chariot. All right. So that's what this is talking about over here. But some more on the article. So Pat Robertson also goes as far as to say, he then cited verses from the book of Ezekiel that note how nations will come together to rise up against Israel, suggesting that Ukraine is merely a staging ground for an eventual Armageddon battle. And he's absolutely right. Like, nothing's really going to happen within Ukraine. Okay. Like I said, what Russia's doing is Russia is taking over Ukraine right now, and if possible, gain back that link that they once had before, the USSR, formulating all of those Eastern European countries together, those 15 republics together. Okay, articles on that, on how Putin wants to bring back the USSR. Like I said, so what I do is I'll put that on post-production as well, showing you those different articles. So anyway, as he continues to say, God is getting ready to do something amazing, he said, and that will be fulfilled. A spokesperson of the Christians Broadcasting Network did not immediately respond to a request for comment early Tuesday. A clip of the segment posted to Twitter had been viewed more than 2 million times as of Tuesday morning. Roberts' comments comes as Ukraine has suffered 1,500 civilians and military casualties since the attack began. Yeah, so now what I want to do is I want to show you, improving as what I'm saying, that the actual war is going to take place in the Middle East, and even as it reads in the book of Joel, the 3rd chapter, about the part of Jehoshaphat, which Jehoshaphat is referencing the region where the great river Euphrates is at, which is where the 4 angels are at that are responsible for the destroying winds. So again, as I've said, when the least of the flock are affected, then this is where it's all going to blow up at. This is where it's all going to blow up at. And that's why this reads in Revelation 16:12, and the 6th angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the waters thereof was dried up. I'll put that on post-production too, because that's actually happening right now. Or it's already happened, excuse me. That the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. So all of those eastern kings are going to be prepared for Armageddon. Hence you have the head title. Okay. Going back to the book of Jeremiah 49 and 20 and onwards. So it's only going to take the least of the flock to draw these mega nations out of Edom. The Edomites of America and the Edomites of Russia. And now what I want to do is I want to talk about what Biden was saying. If Putin uses a tactical nuclear weapon in Ukraine, Joe Biden has warned the world could face Armageddon if Vladimir Putin uses a tactical nuclear weapon to try to win the war in Ukraine. The U.S. president made his host outspoken remarks to date about the threat of nuclear war at a Democratic fundraiser in New York, saying it was the closest the world had come to nuclear catastrophe for 60 years. And we have not faced the prospect of Armageddon since Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis, he said. We've got a guy I know fairly well, Biden said, referring to the Russian president. He's not joking when he talks about potential use of tactical nuclear weapons or biological or chemical weapons, because his military is, you might say, significantly underperforming. Putin and his officials have repeatedly threatened to use Russia's nuclear arsenal in an effort to deter the U.S. and its allies from supporting Ukraine and helping it resist the all-out Russian invasion. Launched on February. One fears that he could use a short-range tactical nuclear weapon to try to stop Ukraine's counter-offensive in its tracks and force Kyiv to negotiate and cede territory. If Russia did use a nuclear weapon, it would leave the U.S. and its allies with the dilemma of how to respond. With the most experts and former officials predicting that if Washington struck back militarily, it would most likely be with conventional weapons to try to avert rapid escalation to an all-out nuclear war. And the all-out nuclear war is going to brew originally in the Middle East. As it goes far as to read what Biden said on Thursday night, I don't think there any such thing as the ability to easily use a tactical nuclear weapon and not end up with Armageddon. All right, because like I said, the nuclear war, as I'm going to say again, the nuclear war is going to be brewing up within the Middle East. And the word Armageddon means the mountain of, or the building up of the troops. So the building up of the troops is going to brew within the Middle East, which is called the Middle East. Okay, that's where everything's going to brew at, and then eventually the war itself is just going to expand all around, as prophecy has it. So that's pretty much all I have to say in reading this article. What I'll do is I'll put this article in the description box if you find this interesting. So with that, I close. Shalom.